I thought I had a boyfriend. For a whole year, everything pointed to that. The weekend sleepovers, the way he texted me goodnight every single evening, the plans we made together, even the first trip we had booked for the summer. He told me he loved me, and I told him the same. I cooked for him, celebrated his small wins, and made his birthday weekend special with pancakes in bed. It felt like love, real and solid, until he opened his mouth and shattered it all. That morning, as he was smiling and eating the pancakes, I laughed and said, "I just love spoiling my man." He looked up at me with that casual grin and said, "I'm not your man." At first I thought he was joking, so I laughed it off. But then his eyes grew serious. "No, really. I'm not your boyfriend." My stomach dropped. The air left my lungs as if someone had punched me. "Then what are we?" I asked, try to stay calm while my hands trembled. He didn't hesitate. "I don't know, great friends with benefits." He said it so easily, as if a year of my feelings, my effort, my love meant nothing. I sat there in silence while he finished his pancakes. My throat was burning, but I refused to let him see me cry. He left an hour later, kissing me on the cheek, like everything was normal. The moment the door closed, I ran to the bathroom and vomited. Then I cried until my eyes were swollen and raw. That night, he texted me, "Thanks for breakfast. You're amazing." I stared at the words on my screen. Amazing, but not enough. Not worth a label. Not worth respect. I didn't reply. He called, I ignored. He came to my door. I lied about having the flu. The man who claimed we weren't a couple was suddenly desperate for my attention. And that's when it hit me. He wanted all the benefits of my love, my loyalty, my time, without giving me the dignity of being his girlfriend. He thought I'd always be there, waiting, serving, loving. He thought wrong. That night, I decided I'd break his heart the way he broke mine. The first 2 days after that conversation were the hardest. My phone lit up constantly, his name flashing across the screen, his voice on voicemails sounding almost confused. As if he couldn't understand why I wasn't rushing to his side, like I always did. But every time I saw his name, I felt sick all over again. I told myself I'd play it smart. If he wanted friends with benefits, then he would learn what it felt like to be treated as disposable. I started with silence. No texts, no calls, not even a birthday message. For the first time in a year, I let him wonder. By the third day, he broke. He texted me, "I miss you. I've never gone this long without hearing from you. Can we have dinner at least?" I stared at the message, my chest pounding. Part of me wanted to say yes, to forgive him instantly, to fall back into his arms. But then I remembered his words, the calm way he said, "I'm not your boyfriend." So I lied. "I'm busy." That's all I sent. He didn't give up. "Don't you miss me?" That's when the idea hit me. The same sting he gave me, I'd give back to him. I typed slowly, my fingers shaking. "Sorry, I'm exhausted. Was out all night with a guy." The second I pressed send, my heart raced so violently I thought I might faint. I hadn't gone out with anyone, but he didn't need to know that. For once, I wanted him to taste the poison of doubt, the kind he forced into me when he refused to name what we had. It took him less than 5 minutes to respond. I watched the typing bubbles come and go again and again, until finally a single word appeared, "Seriously." I didn't reply. For the first time since that morning, I felt control slipping back into my hands. And oh, it felt good. The silence after my last message was almost louder than his words. For hours, nothing came. Then finally, at 2 a.m., my phone buzzed again. "You can do whatever you want. Just don't complain later." I almost laughed. His arrogance was still there, but I could hear the jealousy beneath it. That smug, untouchable man was rattled. He thought he was the prize, that no matter what, I'd always crawl back. But this time, I was done begging for crumbs. The next evening, the doorbell rang around 10:30. My chest tightened. I didn't have to check, I knew it was him. No one else would show up unannounced at my door that late. I peeked through the side window, and there he was leaning casually against the wall, arms crossed, that half-smirk plastered on his face. He thought he was doing me a favor by being there. I didn't open. My phone vibrated seconds later. "Open up. I just want to talk. You know this tantrum of yours won't last." Tantrum. That's what he thought my heartbreak was, a silly tantrum. I let the message sit before replying. "You said you weren't my boyfriend. I'm just enjoying my freedom." The response came instantly. Freedom you never wanted. You'll get tired of this little theater quickly. Call me when it passes. I laughed out loud. Not a happy laugh, a sharp, bitter sound that surprised even me. He still believed he was in control, that I'd eventually crawl back into his arms, grateful for whatever scraps of affection he chose to give. But that night, as he knocked harder on my door, his voice breaking with anger, I realized something. For the first time, he was the one on the outside, and I wasn't going to let him back in. His knocks grew louder, sharp against the quiet of the night. "Are you going to keep pretending you're not home?" he shouted, low but firm. I froze, listening. Then his voice cracked with something I had never heard from him before, anger mixed with desperation. "What kind of guy did you go out with yesterday, huh? Was he good? Better than me?" The king of indifference was jealous. That thought almost made me smile. I walked to the window, slid it open just enough, and looked him dead in the eye. "It's none of your business," I said calmly. "You're not my boyfriend, remember?" His face changed instantly, first shock, then rage. He wasn't used to me talking back. For a year, I'd been the one smoothing things over, swallowing my feelings, laughing off his careless remarks. But not anymore. "You're not going to provoke me, ignore me, and still treat me like just anyone," he snapped. His voice trembled, but not from power, from fear. Fear of losing me. I tilted my head. "But that's exactly what you did to me for an entire year. I guess it doesn't feel so good when the roles are reversed." He took a step back, exhaling hard, his confidence crumbling in front of me. For the first time, I saw him not as the man I had fallen in love with, but as a boy terrified of losing control. And for the first time, I wasn't scared of losing him. The next morning, sunlight streamed into my room, and for the first time in months, I woke up without immediately checking my phone for his messages. I rolled over, stretched, and let the quiet comfort me. No buzzing notifications, no desperate calls, no fake sweetness that hid his unwillingness to commit. Just me, my thoughts, and a strange sense of peace. But of course, peace didn't last long. By noon, my phone had lit up with a string of new messages. "I didn't mean it like that. You're overreacting. We've been great together, why ruin it? Let's just forget what I said. I'll make it up to you." Each one was another twist of the knife he'd left in my chest that day at breakfast. Forget? As if my love, my loyalty, my effort had been nothing but a game. He wanted to erase it, rewrite it, and keep me exactly where he had me, close enough to comfort him, but never close enough to claim. I ignored the texts. But I didn't ignore the way my anger fueled me. I got up, showered, and stood in front of the mirror. My reflection was different already. Stronger. Sharper. My eyes looked like they belonged to someone who was finally ready to stop begging and start taking control. So I made a decision. If he thought I was just fun, just convenient, just someone to warm his weekends, then I would show him exactly what it felt like when the person you depend on suddenly slips out of your hands. That night, I dressed up and went out with my friends, something I hadn't done in ages because he always claimed he hated parties or just wanted a quiet night. I realized how much of myself I had given up for him. My laughter that used to be easy, my independence, my freedom to enjoy life without worrying if he'd sulk about it later. I posted a single photo on Instagram, me, smiling, glass in hand, surrounded by people who actually wanted me there. Nothing too obvious. But I knew he'd see it. He always checked. Within 10 minutes, my phone buzzed. "Out already? Thought you said you were sick. Who's that guy next to you?" I let the messages sit unread. My drink tasted sweeter, knowing he was the one pacing now, not me. The next day, he showed up at my door again. This time, no smirk, no casual arrogance. His jaw was tight, his eyes dark. "Can we talk?" he asked, voice low, almost pleading. I leaned against the doorframe and studied him. "About what?" "About how I wasted a year of my life thinking you were my boyfriend." He winced like I'd slapped him. "That's not fair." "Fair." I laughed, bitter and sharp. "You ate the pancakes I made you, slept in my bed every weekend, told me you loved me, and then looked me in the eye and said I wasn't your girlfriend. Tell me, what's fair about that?" He opened his mouth, then shut it, fumbling for words. For once, he had no clever lines, no smug retorts. He just stood there, small and uncertain, as if he finally realized that the game he thought he was winning was slipping out of his hands. And I loved it. I didn't let him in. Not that day. Not the next. And every time he texted that he missed me, that he couldn't sleep without me, that he'd been wrong, I remembered how calm he'd been when he dismissed me. How his smile hadn't wavered when he told me I was nothing more than a friend with benefits. The more desperate he became, the stronger I felt. Because now he knew what it meant to want someone who refused to give you the label, the dignity, the love you craved. He knew the ache of uncertainty, the sting of rejection, the emptiness of being denied. Exactly what he made me feel. And I wasn't done yet. By the end of that week, he was unraveling. His texts came at all hours, long paragraphs begging me to just answer, short bursts of anger accusing me of playing games. I didn't reply to a single one. My silence became its own weapon, sharper than any words I could throw at him. On Friday night, I saw him again, but not at my door. At the bar where I'd gone with 2 girlfriends from work. I spotted him the moment he walked in. His eyes swept the room, landed on me, and froze. I was sitting at a table with my friends, laughing, a man from the office leaning in just a little too close as he told a joke. For the first time in months, I wasn't shrinking myself for his comfort. I was alive, radiant, free. He didn't like it. He stormed over, jaw clenched, voice barely controlled. "Can we talk?" "Now." I looked up at him, calm, collected, almost bored. "I'm busy." "Busy," he spat. His eyes flicked toward the man sitting next to me, then back to me. "This what you're doing now? Replacing me like it's nothing." "Replacing you?" I laughed softly. Hard to replace something I never actually had. That line hit him like a punch. His face twisted, and for a moment I saw raw panic in his eyes. The man who had once told me I was nothing more than a convenient fling was suddenly terrified of being the one discarded. "Let's go outside," he muttered, almost begging now. "Please." I stood slowly, brushing imaginary dust off my dress, and walked with him just far enough to the patio so we weren't overheard. He turned to me, words tumbling out. "Look, I messed up. I didn't mean it like that. Of course you're more than that. You mean everything to me. I just didn't want the pressure, the labels. I held up my hand, cutting him off. "Stop. You had a year. A year to treat me like I mattered. And you didn't. Now you want to rewrite the story because you feel me slipping away? That's not love. That's fear." His mouth opened, but nothing came out. For the first time, he was speechless. I leaned in just enough so he could feel the weight of my words. "This is what it feels like when someone breaks your heart without even realizing it. Congratulations. Now you know." And then I walked back inside, leaving him standing there on the patio, his perfect little world finally crumbling. That night, I didn't check my phone. I knew there would be messages, missed calls, maybe even voicemails full of apologies. But I didn't care. For once, I wasn't waiting on his words to decide how I felt. I slept peacefully, and when I woke up, I realized I hadn't dreamed of him at all. By Saturday afternoon, though, curiosity got the better of me. I opened my phone. Dozens of texts. "I can't lose you. I didn't realize how much you meant to me until now. I'll do whatever it takes, just talk to me. I'm sorry. Please. I love you." Reading those words, I felt a strange mix of satisfaction and sadness. Months ago, I would have killed to hear him say, "I love you," without hesitation. But now it sounded hollow. Not because I didn't believe him, but because I knew he only said it when he feared losing control. Later that evening, he showed up again, this time with flowers. A pathetic cliché, but I let him speak. He stood in my doorway, shifting nervously. "I was stupid," he admitted, his voice low. "I was scared of commitment. But when I said we weren't a couple, I didn't mean it like that. I didn't know how much you'd walk away. I didn't think you could." There it was. The truth. He never thought I'd have the strength to leave. I crossed my arms, leaning against the frame. "So you wanted all of me, without giving me all of you. That's not love, that's selfishness." His eyes dropped, shame flickering across his face. "I know. I was wrong. Just give me another chance. Let's start over. Please." And for a brief moment, I almost caved. Almost. The boy I loved was standing there, stripped of his arrogance, finally vulnerable. But then I remembered all those nights I cried myself to sleep wondering why I wasn't enough. The pancakes, the weekends, the love I gave so freely, and how easily he dismissed it all. I took the flowers from his hands, set them on the ground between us, and looked him in the eye. You broke my heart like it was nothing. And now I've broken yours. We're even. His face paled. He reached out, but I stepped back and closed the door gently, the final sound of wood clicking into place, echoing like the end of a chapter. And for the first time, I didn't feel broken at all. I felt free. The following week felt strange, almost surreal. I kept waiting for the grief to hit me, for the loneliness to creep in once the adrenaline faded. But instead, I felt lighter. My routines were mine again. My mornings weren't spent checking if he texted good night. My weekends weren't dictated by whether he felt like showing up. And yet, he didn't disappear. He lingered on the edges of my life, showing up at places I went, sending long paragraphs about how he was a changed man, even tried to talk to my friends. One of them texted me after bumping into him. "Girl, he looks wrecked. What did you do to him?" I only smiled at my screen. What did I do? I gave him a taste of his own medicine. But the truth was, it wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about reclaiming the parts of myself I had buried under his casual indifference. The parts that laughed freely, that went dancing on a Friday night, that stayed up late talking with friends, instead of waiting for scraps of attention from someone who didn't value me. One evening, as I walked home from dinner, I saw him waiting near my building. My stomach tightened, but my steps didn't falter. He looked rough, unshaven, eyes tired, clutching his phone like it was his last lifeline. "Can we just talk?" he asked, his voice hoarse. I stopped a few feet away, keeping my distance. "We've already talked. You just didn't listen until it was too late." He ran a hand through his hair. "I get it now, okay? I know I hurt you. I know I was blind. But I swear I'll do better. I'll call you my girlfriend. I'll introduce you to everyone. I shook my head, cutting him off. "You can't rewrite a story that's already ended." His face fell, his shoulders sagging like the weight of every choice he made had finally crashed down. For once, I didn't feel pity. I didn't feel tempted. I just felt done. "You're not used to being told no," I said softly. "But that's all I have left for you." "No." He opened his mouth, but no words came. His silence was louder than all his promises. I walked past him, my keys in hand, my head high. And as I closed the door behind me, I realized something. For a whole year, I thought he was the one holding my heart hostage. But in truth, I had always held the key. And now I had set myself free. The days that followed were the quietest I had known in a long time. He stopped coming to my door. The calls slowed, then ceased. My phone was no longer a battlefield of unread messages. And in that silence, I rediscovered myself. I started painting again, something I had abandoned because he once joked my hobby was childish. I joined a weekend yoga class with a neighbor, letting my body heal from all the stress I had carried. I even took myself out on a solo dinner date, ordering wine and dessert without anyone raising an eyebrow at the price. It was liberating, but freedom didn't erase memory. Sometimes when I lay in bed at night, my mind replayed the good moments, the lazy Sunday mornings, the way he once traced patterns on my hand, the inside jokes that had felt like hours alone. And for a fleeting second, my chest would ache with longing. Then I remembered his words. "I'm not your boyfriend. We're just great friends with benefits." That sentence replayed in my head like a cold splash of water, reminding me exactly why I couldn't go back. One Saturday morning, I bumped into a mutual acquaintance at the farmer's market. She hesitated before speaking. "I saw him last night. He doesn't look good. He said he lost the best thing in his life." I smiled politely, thanked her, and walked away. Deep inside, I felt a mix of satisfaction and sorrow. Maybe I had been the best thing in his life, but he hadn't treated me that way when it mattered. Later, as I carried my groceries home, a thought struck me. I hadn't just broken his heart, I had forced him to confront the emptiness he tried to hide behind his arrogance. For the first time, he knew what it was like to feel disposable. And for the first time, I no longer felt disposable myself. The pain he gave me had transformed into power, and that power was mine to keep. Months later, I barely recognized the girl who once waited by the phone, heart racing for scraps of his affection. My life had shifted back into my own orbit. Work was thriving, my friendships deeper, and I had even started seeing someone new, a man who introduced me proudly as his girlfriend on the very first date. But the most important change wasn't who stood beside me. It was how I stood alone. One evening, as autumn leaves drifted across the street, I ran into him by chance. He looked smaller somehow, his usual confidence replaced by a hollow kind of weariness. His eyes widened when he saw me. "You look happy," he said softly, almost as if it surprised him. "I am," I replied. And I meant it. For a moment, silence stretched between us. Then he whispered, "I was wrong about everything. About us." I studied him, the man who once told me I wasn't his girlfriend, who thought I'd always settle for less. And I realized something. I didn't hate him anymore. I didn't even pity him. He had been my lesson, not my forever. "You were right about one thing," I said finally. "We weren't a couple. Not then. Not ever. Because a couple takes two people willing to choose each other. And I was the only one choosing." He swallowed hard, nodded, and looked away. As I walked past him, a strange calm settled over me. I hadn't just broken his heart to get even. I had broken free from illusion that I needed him to be whole. And in that freedom, I finally found the kind of love I had been craving all along, the love I gave to myself.